Episode 20. Billy said hello to her, and she asked him if he wanted some candy, and he said,
"No, thanks."
She asked him how he was, and he said,
"Much better, thanks."
She said that everybody at the optometry school was sorry he was sick and hoped he would be well soon, and Billy said,
"When you see him, tell him hello."
She promised she would. She asked him if there was anything she could bring him from the outside, and he said,
"No, I have just about everything I want."
"What about books?"
said Valencia.
"I'm right next to one of the biggest private libraries in the world,"
said Billy, meaning Elliot Rosewater's collection of science fiction. Rosewater was on the next bed reading, and Billy drew him into the conversation, asked him what he was reading this time. So Rosewater told him. It was The Gospel from Outer Space by Kilgore Trout. It was about a visitor from outer space, shaped very much like a Tralfamadorian, by the way. The visitor from outer space made a serious study of Christianity to learn, if he could, why Christians found it so easy to be cruel. He concluded that at least part of the trouble was slipshod storytelling in the New Testament. He supposed that the intent of the Gospels was to teach people, among other things, to be merciful, even to the lowest of the low. But the Gospels actually taught this: before you kill somebody, make absolutely sure he isn't well connected. So it goes. The flaw in the Christ stories, said the visitor from outer space, was that Christ, who didn't look like much, was actually the son of the most powerful being in the universe. Readers understood that, so when they came to a crucifixion, they naturally thought, and Rosewater read out loud again, "Oh boy, they sure picked the wrong guy to lynch that time." And that thought had a brother. There are right people to lynch. Who? People not well connected. So it goes. The visitor from outer space made a gift to Earth of a new gospel. In it, Jesus really was a nobody and a pain in the neck to a lot of people with better connections than he had. He still got to say all the lovely and puzzling things he had said in the other Gospels. So the people amused themselves one day by nailing him to a cross and planting the cross in the ground. There couldn't possibly be any repercussions, the lynchers thought. The reader would have to think that too, since the new gospel hammered home again and again what a nobody Jesus was. And then, just before the nobody died, the heavens opened up, and there was thunder and lightning. The voice of God came crashing down. He told the people that he was adopting the bum as his son, giving him the full powers and privileges of the son of the creator of the universe throughout all eternity. God said, from this moment on, he will horribly punish anybody who torments a bum who has no connections. Billy's fiancée had finished her Three Musketeers candy bar. Now she was eating a Milky Way. "Forget books," said Rosewater, throwing that particular book under his bed. "The hell with 'em."
"That sounded like an interesting one,"
said Valencia. "Jesus, if Kilgore Trout could only write!" Rosewater exclaimed. He had a point. Kilgore Trout's unpopularity was deserved. His prose was frightful. Only his ideas were good. "I don't think Trout has ever been out of the country," Rosewater went on. "My God, he writes about Earthlings all the time, and they're all Americans. Practically nobody on Earth is an American."
"Where does he live?"
Valencia asked. "Nobody knows," Rosewater replied. "I'm the only person who ever heard of him as far as I can tell. No two books have the same publisher, and every time I write him in care of a publisher, the letter comes back because the publisher has failed." He changed the subject now, congratulated Valencia on her engagement ring.
"Thank you," she said, and held it out so Rosewater could get a close look. "Billy got that diamond in the war."
"That's the attractive thing about war," said Rosewater. "Absolutely everybody gets a little something." With regard to the whereabouts of Kilgore Trout, He actually lived in Ilium, Billy's hometown, friendless and despised. Billy would meet him by and by.
Billy,
Said Valentia Merble.
you want to talk about our silver pattern?
Sure.
I've got it narrowed down pretty much to either Royal Danish or Rambler Rose.
Rambler Rose,
Said Billy.
It isn't something we should rush into, she said. I mean, whatever we decide on, that's what we're going to have to live with the rest of our lives.
Billy studied the pictures.
Royal Danish,
He said at last.
Colonial moonlight is nice, too.
Yes, it is,
Said Billy Pilgrim. And Billy traveled in time to the zoo on Tralfamadore. He was 44 years old, on display under a geodesic dome. He was reclining on the lounge chair which had been his cradle during his trip through space. He was naked. The Tralfamadorians were interested in his body, all of it. There were thousands of them outside, holding up their little hands so that their eyes could see him. Billy had been on Tralfamadore for 6 earthling months now. He was used to the crowd. Escape was out of the question. The atmosphere outside the dome was cyanide, and Earth was 446,120,000,000,000 miles away. Billy was displayed there in the zoo in a simulated earthling habitat. Most of the furnishings had been stolen from the Sears and Roebuck warehouse in Iowa City, Iowa. There was a color television set and a couch that could be converted into a bed. There were end tables with lamps and ashtrays on them by the couch. There was a home bar and 2 stools. There was a little pool table. There was wall-to-wall carpeting in federal gold, except in the kitchen and bathroom areas, and over the iron manhole cover in the center of the floor. There were magazines arranged in a fan on the coffee table in front of the couch. There was a stereophonic phonograph. The phonograph worked. The television didn't. There was a picture of one cowboy shooting another one pasted to the television tube. So it goes. There were no walls in the dome, no place for Billy to hide. The mint green bathroom fixtures were right out in the open. Billy got off his lounge chair now, went into the bathroom and took a leak. The crowd went wild. Billy brushed his teeth on Tralfamadore, put in his partial denture, and went into his kitchen. His bottled gas range and his refrigerator and his dishwasher were mint green, too. There was a picture painted on the door of the refrigerator. The refrigerator had come that way. It was a picture of a gay 90s couple on a bicycle built for 2. Billy looked at that picture now, tried to think something about the couple. Nothing came to him. There didn't seem to be anything to think about those 2 people. Billy ate a good breakfast from cans. He washed his cup and plate and knife and fork and spoon and saucepan, put them away. Then he did exercises he had learned in the army. Straddle jumps, deep knee bends, sit-ups, and push-ups. Most Tralfamadorians had no way of knowing Billy's body and face were not beautiful. They supposed that he was a splendid specimen. This had a pleasant effect on Billy, who began to enjoy his body for the first time. He showered after his exercises and trimmed his toenails. He shaved and sprayed deodorant under his arms, while a zoo guide on a raised platform outside explained what Billy was doing and why. The guide was lecturing telepathically, simply standing there, sending out thought waves to the crowd. On the platform with him was the little keyboard instrument with which he could relay questions to Billy from the crowd. Now the first question came from the speaker on the television set.
"Are you happy here?"
About as happy as I was on Earth,
said Billy Pilgrim, which was true. There were 5 sexes on Tralfamadore, each of them performing a necessary step in the creation of a new individual. They looked identical to Billy because Their sex differences were all in the fourth dimension.